Hey guys, Phil Graham here from diabeticmuscleandfitness.com. I just wanted to record a very quick video for you guys to share with you some key insights to an experience that I had just this weekend. I had to go over to London on Saturday morning to collect something, and it was a last minute decision to go and fly over. So I booked my flight literally first thing in the morning, went over, arrived, went and collected the thing that I had to go and collect, and had to be back in the airport for, I think it was 6:30. Now, long story short, I underestimated the London traffic and I got stuck in London over the weekend. So I missed my flight, narrowly by about 10 minutes. Now, we all know what it's like to miss a flight. It's horrible. Now, the worst thing about it was that I didn't bring any Lantus with me. I'd literally popped over on the plane and brought my Nova Rapid. I brought a spare Nova Rapid in a little hand satchel, which my laptop was in, but I didn't bring any Lantus. Now, most of you know, if you take multiple daily injections, that Lantus is your background, your basal insulin that keeps your blood glucose level under control and doesn't allow your liver to pump out a ton of glucose and rise your blood glucose way up. Okay, so bear in mind that your liver is one of those big glucose producing organs in the body that just drives blood glucose up constantly. So if you've got no insulin present, one of the main side effects is hyperglycemia. The liver keeps producing glucose and pumps it into the bloodstream. And your basal, your Lantus, prevents that. It recirculates it back into muscle for energy, for fuel, and stuff like that, and for storage. Now, what's the first thing that I thought? Well, I've got no Lantus, my blood glucose is going to climb in the middle of the night, and I'm going to feel horrible. Now, it's very easy to overreact, it's very easy to panic, it's very easy to say, what am I going to do? But long story short, the first thing to ask yourself in that situation is, right, what can I control? And when it comes to diabetes, we've got all these factors. We've got, first of all, medication. So I can use my Nova Rapid in short little tiny bursts, sporadic bursts, to keep my blood glucose level within range. And just because I'm not taking Lantus does not necessarily mean that I'm unhealthy. What's unhealthy is having a high blood glucose level, not necessarily the means of the medication, the insulin that you're using to bring it down. Okay, so that's the main thing, was keeping my blood glucose within range. And I know that the main factors that are going to affect my blood glucose levels are 1, stress, 2, carbohydrate, 3, protein, 4, stimulants. Now, it was towards the end of the evening, so I wasn't going to be taking any stimulants. I knew what I was going to be eating, and I decided to go slightly lower carbohydrate. Why? Because I didn't want any other variables in there that were really going to ramp up my glucose levels. Protein does increase glucose levels, but nowhere near to the extent of carbohydrate. So I went on protein and vegetables. It would fill me up, it would satisfy me, and it wouldn't require too much insulin in comparison to eating potatoes or rice or bread or something like that. I also as well realized that, right, okay, my flight was meant to be at 6:30, and I made the decision to stay in London around about 6:20. So I said, right, I'm going to have my last meal. I was hungry around about 7 o'clock, and I go to bed at about 11:30, 12 o'clock. So I've got a nice little period of fasting before I go to bed. So I have no real carbohydrate in my blood. I have no stimulants in my blood. I'm not stressed. I'm looking at what I can control. And what I did then was realize that I've got a little clean fasting window. So there's no interference. There's no variables that I need to take into account. Understand, when it comes to trying to control your blood glucose, you want to minimize all the variables involved when it comes to controlling your glucose level. So like I said, think about this. You've got medication, you've got carbohydrate, you've got protein, you've got stress, you've got stimulants. And if you remove those, bar the medication, obviously, if your blood glucose is high, you can start to add things in and take things away in order to get your blood glucose better controlled. So I was fasting right before I went to bed. I knew my blood glucose was around about 6.2 millimoles, and I knew the very minute that I hit the pillow that in around about an hour and a half, 2 hours deep into my sleep, that my blood glucose levels are going to start climbing. So what I did was I injected 2 IUs to accommodate that. Okay, now it normally takes a period of time, around about 15 or 25 minutes or so, for that insulin to peak. And I fall asleep very easily, and I know my body well. And I know that whenever I'm missing Lantus, or whenever I'm slightly out of my dosing range within 12 hours, I know that it climbs very quickly. Now, there are multiple ways to take Lantus. We talk about this a lot in Diabetic Muscle and Fitness, the training lab, about split dosing, single dosing. I actually use single dosing just because of the way I taper my nutrition and my activity. Because bear in mind, low intensity activity will actually pull blood glucose levels down, so it actually has an insulin mimicking effect. But in order to know how to do that, please run it through your healthcare professional, but understand the mechanisms of the liver, stress hormones, and the way insulin has a half-life and times out. But what I realized was that was perfect for me. And I woke up this morning with a blood glucose of 6.2 millimoles. So I realized that taking that small little dose of NovaRapid was enough to cover me. And NovaRapid is much more quicker onset than Lantus. And also bear in mind, what would I do if I woke up and I was high? Well, I would just correct instantaneously. And what I would be doing is sporadically correcting over the course of the day up until I was able to get Lantus. Now, the big question is, what do you do first thing in the morning on the next day when you forget your Lantus? Do you take your full shot, or do you just wait until the evening? Well, realistically, your blood glucose is going to be climbing and climbing and climbing even more without that Lantus if you're not going to eat. If you are going to eat, you may have some surplus NovaRapid lying over to bring your glucose down. But understand, the less insulin you have on board, especially if you're type 1, the more likely your blood glucose level is going to climb. Okay, so what I typically do is I typically dose half of what I normally require, and then I dose half right before bed. So it covers me throughout the day. I'm not overdosing. And if you're overdosing on Lantus and you're taking your NovaRapid on top and you're active, you're really going to take a lot of hypos and you're going to consume a lot of calories, and that's not going to go down too well. All right. So what I did is I take half, and then I take half before I go to bed, and realized that while I may be slightly under my insulin dose for Lantus, I've already controlled my blood glucose up to that point in the morning wherever I'm taking the Lantus. Okay, so that's the variable that I work off. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Understand, there's no need to panic. You just look at what you can do, what you can control, pull nutrition back fast, do low intensity activity, sporadically correct with your fast acting, and just don't panic. You know, if I was to stress about that and think everything's going to go wrong, my blood glucose would climb and climb and climb, and I just wouldn't be able to sleep. It's one day. Remember, one day in the grand scheme of your life is not a big deal. And the most important factor is about keeping it within control. And we sometimes look at over exaggerating these situations, and we don't really get resourceful, right? So when you get resourceful, you start thinking. And inside the Diabetic Muscle and Fitness Training Lab, we have a ton of resources that teach you to become resourceful. We even had a PhD nutrition student the other day who's diabetic email me and said that they'd learned stuff that they didn't learn in university in the training lab, and they're type 1 themselves, and that they've mastered a certain aspect of their control with the information in there. So I urge you, if you're not a member of the training lab, go in, study the guides. It's in really deep detail. It covers all the contexts of day-to-day life with diabetes, training, building muscle, building a body, whether you're male or female, it really doesn't matter. And we have a great community. We have one of the best Facebook groups out there. It's super high quality. And like I said, I love the group to bits. It's a great place to go in and just empty your thoughts, and everyone can understand you because they're all on the same page. So I'd love to see you inside Training Lab. Take care and have a great week.